Hi, my name is Deborah Engelmajer and I'm the founder of Tizit.co, a membership community for makers, artisans and handmade business owners. Armed with a master in business and marketing, I initially started my career in big corporates and e-commerce, then specialized as an online marketing and business consultant. I'm also a trained graphic designer and I've worked as a freelance brand designer, both graphic design and web design, for years before founding Tizit.co. I've been lucky to work in the handmade industry for over 7 years now and to support thousands of students via my programs. And one thing I learned rather quickly is that although creating a professional looking brand for your handmade shop is a crucial part of building a successful handmade business, it isn't necessarily easy if you don't have enough money to hire a professional when you're just starting out and you also don't have any graphic design skills or experience. Today, I'm excited to share with you a simple 6-step process that I have used to help thousands of makers who, just like you, wanted a brand that looked professional but didn't know how to do it themselves. Thankfully, these days, you don't need any fancy or expensive tools to make it happen, and I'm going to walk you through my favorite selection of tools and show you how to use them. This is going to be a fun training, and by the end of it, you will have designed a professional looking brand for your handmade business. Let's dive in. Welcome to this training to help you design your own brand for your handmade business in 6 simple steps, even if you're not a designer. So what are we going to do together today? Well, we're going to follow a fun and easy 6-step process to design your own brand from scratch. Even if you don't have any graphic design skills or experience, I'll show you this with some really easy tools. And here are the 6 steps that we're going to take together. First, we'll create an inspiration board. Second, we'll work on your brand mood board. Third, we'll define your color palette. Fourth, we'll work on your logo. Fifth, we'll work on your fonts and the typography for your brand. And finally, the last step is to put it all together in your brand style guide, which is essentially a document that you can keep for yourself as a reference or that you can share with anyone that will work with you in the future. So if you ever decide to hire help from a graphic designer or a web designer or even a social media manager, you would want to give them this brand style guide so that they know what fonts to use, what colors to use, so that your entire brand online is cohesive and look the same on all different platforms. So an example of what you would be creating is this. So you can see a couple of logo options here, a clear color palette, and a clear choice of fonts as well. So by the end of this training, you will have created something similar for yourself. Obviously, it will look very different for every one of you because we're going to take into consideration your brand personality and your products, and it might not look exactly like this, but it will be very similar. Before we dive into the training, I wanted to take a moment to remind you to download your workbook. I've created a workbook for you, which includes all the 6 main steps with links to the tools that I'm going to be recommending in this training, so you can click directly on them, as well as key action steps for each of those 6 main steps so that you can follow along. So if you haven't downloaded this workbook yet, I recommend you pause the video and download it before moving forward. And when you're ready, let's dive in. There's a few prerequisites that I would like you to be clear on and to have in place before we dive into the actual design process of your brand, because when we think about brand identity, we often think about the visual elements of a brand, the tangible element of your brand. These are the things that we see, and so that's what we associate with branding most often. Things like your logo, your fonts, your colors. You will see them, on graphics, on social media. You will see them on the website. You might see them on packaging. And so when we think branding, these are usually the things that we think about. But there is a lot more to branding than that, and those tangible elements are really only the tip of the iceberg, and below that, the most important element of your brand are not visible to the eyes, and they are what I call the intangible elements of your brand. And this is your brand mission, your brand vision, your brand values, your tone of voice as well, and your ideal customer profile. So these are things that you can't really see, but that are important to have in place and to be clear on before you go into the design process, because we're going to use this information and the clarity that you have around what your brand stands for to design your brand. Essentially, you want to think of your brand as a person, And we don't want to start drawing this person before we understand the personality that it has. And so that's what your brand mission, your brand vision, your brand values, and your tone of voice do. They help you clarify that brand personality so that we can reflect that personality with visual design elements. It's also very important to be clear on who you are going to be selling your products to, which is called your ideal customer profile. Because in order to design a brand that's going to look professional, and most importantly, that's going to help you generate sales for your handmade business, which is what we want, you have to design your brand with a clear idea of who your ideal customers are in your mind, because you have to design your brand to attract them. It's really easy to think that your brand should reflect who you are as a designer, and this can be the case if your brand is mostly a personal brand and your shop name is maybe your designer name, your actual full name, but it's not always the case. Often the customers for your products who want to purchase gifts for their loved ones or decorate their homes, they have different lifestyles, they live in different places, and they have different aspirations that you might. So it's really important to keep this in mind. For example, if you design leather wallets, belts, and other leather goods for men, you need to think about creating a brand that appeals to masculine aesthetics, even if this isn't necessarily representative of your personal style and of your favorite colors. So in short, your favorite color is not necessarily your ideal customer's favorite color. So before you start, make sure that you are clear on who you are wanting to sell your products to, that you have defined your brand mission, values, and vision, and then you're ready to move forward. So before you start, make sure that you are clear on who you are wanting to sell your products to, your ideal customers, and that you have defined your brand mission, your brand values, and your brand vision. You really want to be able to answer questions like, is your brand joyful, minimalist, eco-friendly? Is it bold and clashy? Is it elegant and sophisticated? We want to have an idea of what your brand is and stand for. When you have that, let's jump into step 1. Your inspiration board. An inspiration board is a collage of images that you will collect and organize to kickstart your branding process. Now, designers usually use them to find inspiration, obviously, but also to set guidelines for the brand they're about to create. And so what I really want you to remember is that as much as it's important, especially when you're just starting with your inspiration board, to collect as many images as you feel is necessary, you will need to curate them. You need to select in the end the ones that work with each other, the one that complement each other so that your inspiration board looks cohesive. Now, the best way to create an inspiration board is to use a Pinterest secret board. I'm going to show you in a minute how to actually do that. We'll jump into Pinterest together so that you can see the process and how it works. And as I was just saying at first, I don't want you to worry too much about what you add to your Pinterest board, but stay away, and that's the number one rule that I have, and the only one for that exercise, stay away from other logos, from other brand graphics during your search. We want to focus on real images instead. So think about images of other people, of homes, of interior decors, of objects, of plants, of animals, of textures. So it could be very zoomed in shots, or it could be larger kind of scenery or cityscape or nature images. Anything can be on your inspiration board, but no logos from other brands. And the reason I say that is because I've noticed that the first intuition when we want to develop a brand is to look up from inspiration from other brands. And so you might start searching things like, if you're making handbags, handbag logo, handbag designer logos, and look at what other brands who makes handbag have as a logo. But if you do that, everything that you're going to do after that will be slightly biased by what you've seen others do. And I really want you to start with a clean slate and really just asking yourself, what kind of images represent my brand, regardless of what other similar brands are doing. So stay away from other brands' logos and graphics during your search. Now, as you get started with the inspiration board in Pinterest, pin as many images as you'd like. Then we will filter them down and delete as many as we need to get the number of images on your inspiration board down to 15 to 20. Now, if, and again, I'm about to jump into Pinterest to show you how to do this, but if you get stuck when you're searching for images for your own inspiration board, here are a few prompts that I think are helpful to search for images. The first one is, if your brand was a room, what would it look like? So if your brand has to be defined by the picture of a room, what would it look like? Would it be an office? Would it be a bathroom? Would it be a living room? And then what kind of living room? Would it be quite muted with very minimal colors and straight geometric lines, very modern look? Or would it be, very colorful with bold and clashy colors on the pillows and the walls? What kind of room would your brand be? If your brand was a texture, which texture would it be? Would it be fur? Would it be wood grain? Would it be sand, clay? Would it be a smooth surface like glass or metal? Would it be something a bit rougher like leather, for example? What kind of texture represents your brand? If your brand was a location or a place, what would it be? Would it be a jungle? Would it be a city? What kind of jungle? What kind of outdoor area? What kind of city? If your brand was an outfit or a shoe or an accessory, what kind would it be? Would it be a running shoe? Would it be a red heel? Would it be a hiking boot? What kind of accessory or outfit or shoe would your brand be? And if your brand was a shape, what would it be? Would it be geometric? Would it be quite organic? Would it be more of a natural shape, so maybe leaves and things like that? What kind of shape would your brand be? Now, you don't need to answer those questions necessarily, but they are here to help you guide your search if you do feel stuck at the beginning of the search projects, because you should be able to answer those questions based on what you know of your ideal customers and based on what you know of your brand visions and values and the personality of your brand. And this will help you find and search and find images that reflect your brand. So for example, if my brand was a room, it would be a very modern office, then you know to search for really modern offices images and put those on your inspiration board. Okay, so let's dive into Pinterest, and I'm going to show you step by step how to create an inspiration board with a couple of examples. Here we are inside of Pinterest, and I've linked to this direct page inside of your workbook. So if you don't have a business account or an account at all with Pinterest, this is definitely a necessary step. And if you already have an account, you might be able to skip that and use the account that you already have. But if you do need to create an account, this is the page that you need to go on, and then you click on creating an account. And it will just ask you for an email, password, and your age. And if you hit create account here, you will have a brand new Pinterest account created. Very simple process. Once that's done, you will see your Pinterest dashboard, which looks like this. Now, this is a test account that I use to create training, so there's a little bit of everything going on there. And when you just open up your Pinterest account, yours will be empty. You won't see what I'm seeing here. But the most important step, and the reason we're here right now, is to create a secret board so that you can start your inspiration board. And so what you want to do is click the link that says boards here, and then we want to click on this red plus sign right here. You want to give your name a board. So for example, I'm going to call it inspiration board brand design. It doesn't really matter what name it is, it's just for you because no one is going to see or find this board. So it's just for your reference only. And then what's important is to keep this board secret. So we want to toggle this one so that no one can find your board as you're working on it. So click create, and then you can skip this. What Pinterest does is that based on the name that you gave your board, they will recommend some pins that they think are relevant. And although we can see that they've guessed it quite accurately here because they know we're about to have a board that's going to be a brand inspiration board, we don't want to pin those images to our inspiration board because this goes against the one rule that I shared with you, which is do not pin other logos and graphics from other brands to your inspiration board. And that's exactly what we can see here. We don't want to be biased by what we know other people are doing. So just click on done to skip this. and your board is empty, which is what it says here. There aren't any pins on this board yet. And this is when the search process begins. So that we can work together on an example, I want to give you a little bit of context as to what I'm going to be adding to this inspiration board. So we're going to imagine that you are selling handmade leather bags for women, and you know that your ideal customer is young, active, quite driven woman with very modern and minimalist style. She has aspiration to have a big career. She probably lives in a city somewhere. So she has classic taste, but she mixes them in with a bit more of a modern sense of aesthetic. So that's what we are working with here as an example. So if you remember the prompts that I gave you when we were looking at the slides just before, I was asking things like, if I was your brand, what room would that be? If I was a texture, what texture would that be? So you can start with things like that. So we're going to click on the search icon that's right here and start searching for what we think this ideal customer is into. So for example, what room would this brand be? It would probably be a classy office. And from what we see here, you should already know if this matches the image that you want your brand to reflect or not. And if not, then that's fine. We go back to search and we change the keywords. Based on what I have in mind here, this looks a little bit soft. It's very feminine, very bright, and I have in mind a bit more of a strong brand. So I'm going to add the keyword moody in here. That's already better with what I had in mind. So I'm going to add those darker, moodier, yet classic and elegant ideas to my board. So you can see here it's already selected it. So you can just click on save. And especially if you have a new business account and you only have one board created for now, this will be very easy for you because there's only one board, you can just click on save directly. If you have more boards, you want to click on that little drop down arrow, select the board that's your inspiration board and click save from there. I'm just going to click save here. And then if I see other things that I like, so for example, maybe I like this one too, I like this one, I'm just going to start adding them. This is when you start having fun. You don't have to think too much about how cohesive this all is, just things that you feel work well with what you want your brand to represent. Feel free to click on them and add them to that. And then you might want to move to something else. So for example, what shoe or what outfit or what accessory would I be as a brand? And so here I might have to, I might type in working outfit heel and look at a few things here, see if I find a few ideas inspiring. Maybe that works quite well with what I want my brand to represent. It's classic, but it's also quite modern. And so just scrolling like that, I'm going to add those images to my inspiration board. I'll do the same with texture. So in this case, obviously I'm thinking leather because that's what the brand is mostly about. Well, see, that doesn't really work. So I'm just going to add texture. And for example, add this one. That works quite nicely as well. And so you want to keep going like that until you have selected a lot of images, and then you want to go back to your board and have a look at what you have added. So to do that, you simply want to click on this little icon here, which is your profile, and you'll be taken to your profile page. Click on boards and find the secret board that you've been adding those images to. In my case, and to save us a bit of time, I know I've showed you how to create a secret board with this example here, but I actually had another one prepared for this training. So this is the one that I've been pinning my images to. And as you can see, I've been adding a few images in here. So keeping in mind the brand that I described to you, this is very classic, it's modern, it's something that is a bit bold and strong. So we have those touches of colors, but it's very refined and elegant at the same time. So after you pin for a little bit and have fun with it, it's really a fun process. Don't ask yourself too many questions. I want you to spend some time on Pinterest, typing different keywords in the search and really having fun with the images that you choose. And then when you feel like you've pinned enough, you can go and have a look at what you have and how do you think that they work together. Now, I think that those work together quite nicely. We have a brand that's got strong, sharp geometric shapes. It's very strong, some pop of colors. We've got leather and metallic textures. So it's feminine, but it's a strong woman that we're going for as an ideal customer. We have a few images that maybe don't work quite as well. So for example, this one I'm thinking now doesn't work quite as well with what I had. And so you can go and delete the pin that don't work too well from your board. And when you're finished, you should have around 20 pins on this inspiration board of yours. I'm going to keep mine as it is because I've curated it just to show you what a cohesive board looked like. As you can see, I've also added some quotes. I've got some images of women. I've got accessories. I've got buildings. I've got texture. I've got interiors and decors as well. So make sure that you also have a variety of different pins. Now, I do have another example that I've prepared for you to give you an idea of what it would look like for a completely different brand. And this one is here. So this is another inspiration board example that I've created for this course. And as you can see already, we get a very different idea around the brand and around what it could be. And without me even explaining to you the brand that I had in mind when I created that, I'm sure that you can see how different it is from the other one. This is a lot more natural. We've got a lot of organic shapes and organic textures, from the rattan to clay to a lot of leaves and pictures taken from nature, like this one or this zoom here. And the color palette is also very different. It's softer. It's not as bold and strong. It's more muted. It's softer. We go into the pastel, definitely very feminine. And in terms of interior, we also have spaces that are quite simple, as in very muted in the color that we have, with pops of different colors and textures as well, but still in that quite muted color palette. So without even knowing what kind of brand we're designing for, we understand the direction that this brand is taking. Now, in my mind, when I created this example for you, I imagine a shop selling ceramics as gifts, so beautiful mugs and bowls and plates. So that's what I used as a starting point, but I just wanted to show you the difference between inspiration board and how already, without having any logo, any graphics, any fonts, or anything that makes a brand, we already understand the personality and the vision of this brand and what it represents. So this is what you have to do. Make sure to create a secret board and then spend some time in the search bar here looking for textures, images of interior design, outdoor, city, nature, outfits, anything that you think is going to help you represent visually your brand. And when you're done, curate that and delete the one that don't quite work together to have a selection of around 20 pins.